Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next The Dawn of Yangchen chapter analysis video. This one is going to be for chapter 25, which is called Remembrance. So, interesting chapter here. We get a little bit of flashback with Kavik and Kalyan explaining some of that a little bit more. And then we mainly deal with sort of like the aftermath of both Kavik and Yangchen finding out that people have now died as a result of this mission and the sort of spying type stuff going on. And in a way, that's on those two. They kind of got Kyo killed. What's going to happen from here? This affects Yangchen, it affects Kavik. Can they keep going on the mission? And so it leads to a kind of important one-on-one conversation between Kavik and Yangchen, where they kind of grow to sort of like trust each other even more. Kavik properly becomes, like, in a way, like the true avatar companion in this moment, and they are going to do this going forward. So good stuff. And yeah, we jump straight in with the idea of a flashback. Now the flashback happens because the cliffhanger from the last chapter was that he looks down in his hand and he's got the coin purse, the money that he was paid for disposing of Kyo. Now they explain, like, when we come out of the flashback, that he basically sort of like fainted, almost like just the effect of what have I just done caused Kavik to faint, and this is in a way why this is actually happening. So Kavik is 8 years old in this flashback, and it says here that he has cursed the hunt. He was sure of it. He had forgotten one of his amulets, or committed a taboo before heading out, or had made the right gestures to the spirits, but without the proper respect in his heart. And the reason for this, he thinks he has done something wrong, is because he and his brother Kalyan have been sort of separated from the group in the storms up in the north during one of the hunts. And they've been kind of turned around in the blizzard, and they don't know how they're going to get out of this situation. And what you get from this flashback is effectively this idea that Kavik blames himself for this incident and what happens to Kalyan. This is the origin story of basically how Kalyan loses two of his fingers. In that he helps his brother, as we see out here during all of this. It's actually quite quick, just highlighting that Kavik feels like a burden in this instance and has to be like bailed out of this situation pretty much 100% by Kalyan. The main details of this here are that Kalyan cuts strips off his own mittens and basically turns them into sort of a makeshift food, because I guess they're made from like animal hide, so it's somewhat of a food if you treat it well enough. Kalyan does everything to keep Kavik alive, and the idea is that they eventually manage to get out entirely because of Kalyan. But in the process, the opening on his mittens that he gave to keep Kavik alive is where the cold got in and two of his fingers got frostbitten. So he seems pretty okay about it. He's kind of like, don't worry about it. Middlers think 8's a lucky number, and he's kind of joking about it. But like I said, Kavik feels like he's a burden, that he feels very, very responsible for this, that his weakness of not being strong enough, skilled enough, is kind of what got them into this situation. And that, he thinks that there is this, like, it says here, the original unknown offense had not been accounted for, and he thinks, I should have lost something too out there in the blizzard, and the fact that I made it back, alive means that something's coming for me, like one day almost, that like he cheated the spirits in making this happen. And this sort of continues in a way as like he kind of blames himself for like the hunts beginning to fail more and more. There not being the same level of animals that there were to facilitate the hunts, and so this is why his family moved to Binner in the first place, and then things going wrong there and so on. And he notes that the footprints may have been different, but they could all have come from the same shape-changing beast, walking in an unbroken line from the past to the present. If so, Kavik had only himself to blame. And that's what we take from this, is that this is an incident where Kavik just looks on as I was useless effectively in this instance, and that he thinks he caused the incident that made that happen, and somehow he made it out no problem. Kalyan lost 2 fingers, and that in a way this triggered all these events that have happened up to now, and that basically connecting that to the present day, that here is sort of another instance in a way of that happening. Kavik not being good enough, making a mistake or something like that, and apparently getting killed. And this is why he sort of faints, because it reminds him of this other failure from his past. And so then we cut back to the present and we find out that, yeah, the Avatar was the one that caught him. Like, he full on just faints in the middle of this. And so, they let him calm down, wake up again. And they're like, okay, tell us what happened. Because, of course, they only briefly got the idea that, like, okay, someone's like, something really bad has happened. He hasn't told the others yet, like, the extent of everything. But this is where he gets out the idea of, like, okay, it was a body disposal mission, it was Q, and Yangchen is like, how did that happen? Like, he told you he was going to Taku, not John Dory. What happened? And he's just like, I guess he changed his mind after we talked. And they're all looking to Yangchen about, okay, what do we do now? But Yangchen is sort of, in a way, panicking herself. They note that this is not the spy master Yangchen that, they're sort of used to. This is the kind of other one who doesn't know how to handle some of these kind of like darker aspects. And she kind of really loses it a little bit here and kind of runs off. And they try to follow her, but of course she's an airbender, so she's gotten away like straight away. And they're like, we're never going to be able to find her. But Kavik is like, I think I know where she's gone. Where is the loudest beach around here? So this is meant to be a reference to the fact that when they were at the Northern Air Temple, when he woke up in the middle of the night, he saw that she sort of got her frustrations out on the airball court by doing some like airbending in there. And he realizes, she's probably going to do something similar here. So they head to Tiger Dillo's Roar, which was mentioned earlier on. It's not super significant, but he basically just spots her from a distance, screaming out into the distance, into the ocean. All they can hear is the waves. It's so loud here up against the cliffs. And he just notes that, like, even for the Avatar, like, she cannot make herself heard over the, rush of nature going on here. And she's doing these really powerful, like, airbending blasts out into the ocean that are, they open up like a wound in the middle of the ocean, but of course it's water, so it immediately sort of seals itself back over. And he just waits and watches and, just sees her extremely frustrated by the situation here. And when she finally exhausts herself, this is when she spots Kavik, and she kind of just like ushers him over. So she then basically makes them a little they have a sort of the Storm-esque kind of conversation here, where Yangchen sort of like earthbends them into the cliffside, seals it up, and they have she has firebending, of course, to give them light. And so they have a conversation here where they can actually hear each other, because they're kind of sealed into the rock a little bit here for safety. And this is a really nice conversation, because it supposed shows you how close the two have got in a very short period of time. So this is where the first thing they get to is that the other dead body gets confirmed as Sadao here, and Yangchen is like, guess that means I got him killed too. I have 2 deaths on my hands. And it's a nice conversation here, as she just sort of like notes that, it was my fault. I'm sorry for what happened to your friend, that he died doing, this. And effectively she tells him, your mission is over. We're pulling out. We'll find some other way to do it, but you've done your mission to the best of your ability. I will get you and your parents' passes out of Bin and it will be a complete success. But Kavik is actually the one to be like, no, we have to still go ahead with this. Like, he he wanted to do this. And this is where, again, you see these moments of like, he's sort of reluctant. He acts like it's such a drag to be involved in this kind of big mission with Yangchen. But you see so many times when his actual, you know, his real opinion on the situation is that no, he does want to help. And so in a way, like, it's a contrast to the more kind of self-destructive Kavik that we see from like the flashbacks, who blames himself for a situation he had no real like hand in having happen. And he blames himself for the Q thing, but here we see him kind of stand up and be like, no, this is an opportunity. They think they've got the Avatar spies. They'll let their guards down. We have to keep going. But Yangchen is worried that, like, oh, no, there's a high chance that you've been made. And he just points out that I've been with this group for a little bit now. If they wanted me dead, they'd have killed me already, because the disposal mission with Jujinta would have been perfect to get rid of him, because he's on a boat alone with a knife expert at close quarters. It would have been no problem given how good Jujinta is with knives. So he's kind of like, no, I think I'm in the clear here. But Yangchen gives him like the final warning of like, you're talking about a double beat that cost 2 lives to set up. Our path forward will be laid over the backs of the dead. I can't even seek justice for Sadao and Q while you're undercover, because the only way I could have found out about them was through you. And this is the other point of like, she has now found out that these 2 people are dead because they are believed to be the spies of Yangchen, even though that's not really the case. But she can't even like act surprised at that, because they're meant to be spies. So she has to, in a way, publicly ignore that. She can't do anything about that. And she's not allowed to publicly interact with Kavik either, because to keep his cover. So it's putting a lot of pressure of the mission on Kavik to do this. She does say, I don't think I could handle it if something happened to you. I can't lose any more friends. And this is a big moment in that, like, I think this is probably the first time either of them have referred to the other as like a friend. So interesting stuff. So they decide to go back up to the surface, you know, back up the cliff basically. But they're like, oh, the kind of tides are coming in. We have to get up quick. I'm going to have to like air spout you up. So there's this kind of fun situation where like she creates this sort of cyclone for him to go up, makes one herself, and she describes to him, okay, this is how you stay steady on an air spout. But he messes up and is like, I think I'm going to fall. So she has to merge their 2 cyclones together. And it involves him like hanging onto her. So you get a kind of fun like moment where they finally land on top of the cliff, and he's still sort of like holding on, like terrified. And she's like, you can let go now. And he realizes that like, oh, he was like full on like attached onto her. So fun little moment there. On the edge of the cliff, she does ask Kavik to guard her, and then she gives basically this kind of a mourning lament for Sadao and Q. She tries to do it as best she can. Like, she knows Sadao is from Nanyan, and she asks, okay, where's Q from, so I can do like something that represents the nation that he was from. And we get this idea that like Kavik's like, I don't know, like I in the grand scheme of things, like I didn't really know him that well. But he's beginning to like kind of tear up at this, in that it's this weird thing where like he has said before that Q was basically the closest thing he had to a friend. But I suppose it more speaks to the idea of like he didn't really have many close friends at all because of what's happened. And Yangchen is like, well, I don't know if this will help, but I saw him with you. And that means he hasn't disappeared. If he's part of my memories, then, as strange as it is to think, there's a slim chance an avatar of future generations will understand who Q was through me. And Kavik's like, why do I feel so upset when I didn't really know him that well? And she just points out that you don't have to be close to someone to know they deserve better. That's what being the Avatar is about. That's what being a companion of the Avatar is about. We fight for people we've never met and never will. And so it comes up, am I like really one of your companions? And she says, Most of the world thinks I dictate who serves me and who doesn't, when nothing could be further from the truth. You're asking me if you're my companion? The choice is yours, Kavik. It always has been. And then he finally says, I know what I choose. And that's the kind of cliffhanger ending of like, he has finally, I suppose in a way, truly 100% embraced, like he is the companion now. He's not just the informant, the errand runner that Yangchen has hired. No, things are good now. Like he's close with Yangchen and it's a true companion kind of dynamic now. So a very important chapter in the grand scheme of things overall. So it's one of the more kind of like emotional scenes as Yangchen is ready to sort of give up to protect Kavik and not have anyone else get killed. But Kavik is kind of like, no, I'll take the risk because I think we have somehow managed to get through this. That Q, in a way, has almost like masked the idea that Kavik is here. So, you know, it seems like they're ready to go on this. So overall, the chapter I think is quite good. That conversation is great. The flashback at the start, even though it's quick, I think is an important one to get across that idea of that's why Kavik feels such a need to sort of in a way try and find Kalyan. Obviously that dynamic has changed since he, I suppose, basically found out that Kalyan purposefully left and has never come back. And so he feels a sense of like resentment there. But still, this is the brother who saved him, who was like always there for him. So he's in a kind of complex situation there where like he's put in all this effort to in a way try and find him, but if he doesn't want to be found, in a way, what does that mean? And like he's blaming himself for a lot of things, and so the Q thing in the present brings that up all the more. But then he handles himself very well in the conversation with Yangchen, and you know, fully, you know, embeds himself here as a Yangchen Team Avatar member here, a companion. That's good for like his character development to like fully like embrace this role of like, I'm not just doing this to get the passes, I'm invested in this in a way to try and, you know, change this situation, fix things, and in a way like help those two people who died somehow, and get some sense of justice for them by, you know, getting rid of the people who are doing this, and you know, making things better for the people as well. And the point there at the end of like him in a way crying because of Q, even though he didn't know him that well, just highlights Kavik cares. And that's the big thing about being a companion, is you have to in a way care about people that you may not even know. And Yangchen represents that, and now we see that Kavik represents that as well. So very, very good stuff here in Remembrance. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.